Welcome back to Then and Now. I'm Julian Zelizer of the Longview.
And I'm Jonathan Alter of Old Goats.
John, watching the terrible events this week in Minneapolis, the shooting by an ICE agent of the 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. I think everyone is thinking about and talking about, and I was thinking of Kent State back in May of 1970, which was another traumatic moment when the Ohio National Guard, who had been called in by Governor James Rhodes to Kent State University to deal with protests. There had been protests once President Nixon revealed that he was sending troops into Cambodia. And there were protests. The protests unfold. And on May 4th, members of the National Guard shoot at the students, and 4 Kent State students are killed. This is part of an iconic song by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Ohio. It's commemorated through that. And it leads to national outrage about federal power, about how the National Guard is being used, about the war. And there's kind of similar emotional element to how people feel. So it's curious how you think of that and what you remember and how it might connect to today.
Yeah, I was alive then. I was 12, and obviously can remember it very vividly. Anybody who was over the age of 9 or 10 in the United States at that time knew all about this. It was a huge thing, which younger generations don't know about. But it wasn't just Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. The 4 Dead in Ohio, the iconic photograph
Yeah.
taken by John Philo, won the Pulitzer Prize, he later worked with me at Newsweek. This changed the whole treatment of the war in Vietnam, not just on campus, but the combination of the invasion of Cambodia and the death that resulted not just in Southeast Asia, but here in the United States, changed something profoundly. And it wasn't that much after that you started seeing things like the Cooper Church Amendment to cut off funding for the war in Vietnam, and a much more intense debate about what we were doing there than there had been in the Johnson administration and the first year and a half of the Nixon administration. So I think where the comparison is strongest is that this will change the debate over ICE.
Hmm.
And same way that you had an iconic photograph there entering popular culture, this will as well. And Renee Good will be as well known as George Floyd. Look, it will go out of the headlines pretty soon, maybe even today, but it will linger as an important moment, and also one that gave people courage to pull out their cell phones so everybody can be like John Philo was at Kent State. Everybody can record what ICE is doing to this country and Donald Trump is doing to this country. And that's the beginning. That fearlessness in the wake of a traumatic event is the beginning of changing the terms of the debate.
Well, thank you. I think it would be very heartening if out of a really tragic moment, something positive developed in terms of politics. We will see, but I think the comparison is very useful. So thanks again, and thanks everyone for joining Then and Now. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.